Hi there, I'm Sipka, and this is the Apatros Review. Now in this episode we take a look at Asylum, which was a 2002 direct-to-video horror flick made by Full Moon Studios, or Full Moon Pictures. Now this was directed by Danny Draven and premiered direct-to-video in the United States on the 11th of April 2002, and then in the UK on the 13th of May 2002. It was directed by Danny Draven, who also was the DP and the editor. The screenplay was written by Trent Hager, and produced by Tammy Sutton. Now the cast includes Deborah Mayer, Sonia Lombardo, Tanya Dempsey, Stacey Scally, Tim Muscatel, and also features Brinker Stevens and Joe Estevez. By the way, seeing Joe Estevez in a movie is usually a very bad sign. Now, by the way, the Australian DVD was actually, my copy was part of a multipack, one of those $10 multi-packs from Flashback Entertainment. It was also released as a single, but I'll talk more about that later. Now, those die-hard fans of direct-to-video horror seem to have lost hope in the idea that the once mighty direct-to-video horror studio Full Moon Pictures, which was once renowned for making surprisingly robust horror B films, ranging from the Trancers, also known as Future Cop sequels, to all its puppet master flicks. Now, they've lost all hope in the idea that Full Moon can sustain the quality of its features any longer. From the start of the 21st century, the quality of Full Moon's films seems to have fallen down into an abyss. Although if I had a choice between Full Moon's current line of films and the infamously bad string of post-millennial serial killer flicks that the late hackmeister Uli Lamel made before his death, one of which I'm reviewing in the future, I'd go Full Moon every time. While Full Moon currently makes the decision of manufacturing ultra-cheap schlock like Corona Zombies, a re-edit to the legendarily bad Bruno Mattei Italian zombie flick Hell of the Living Dead, the loss of quality can be evident as far back as 2001, when the film Horror Vision was released, which was an atrocious anti-technology thriller that felt like a bargain basement riff on The Matrix. Now, the director of that atrocity, Danny Draven, followed that one up with Hell Asylum, quite a lurid title, huh? An ultra-cheap and utterly tawdry horror send-up of the then-current and utterly obnoxious reality television trend, made for those millennial hipsters who have learnt nothing from the genre films of the past. Now, having just succeeded in convincing an investor friend into financing his new concept for a reality TV show called Chill Challenge, basically like Fear Factor, struggling TV producer Max invites 5 girls, one of whom happens to be his girlfriend, for the show's pilot. The premise of the show is simple. The girls will have to stay overnight in an abandoned asylum that was built by a notorious sadist who had 5 wives reputed to be experimented on. The aim of the game being to face their fears in several challenges staged for each of them. Again, it's like Fear Factor. The last person standing will win $1 million. But once the show starts and the girls are locked in the asylum, the undead wives return to kill everyone in the building. Now, Horror Vision was an utterly forgettable waste of film stock, and Hell Asylum is no different. Although it is slightly better in the sense that the gore effects do not look too shabby, despite being presented without an ounce of conviction. The film joined the ranks of a number of horror films at the time that tried to set up the reality television show phenomenon of the time. Just count the likes of Halloween Resurrection, Series 7 The Contenders, Death on Demand, My Little Eye, Cruel World, and many others. I'll also review all of those in the future. But Draven, who started out as an editor and DP for the likes of David Dakota, has no skill of competent filmmaking basics. He seems to be of the horror hipster set, the type of filmmaker who grew up watching classic horror films but learnt nothing from the experience, instead thinking that simply picking up a digital camcorder and shooting in abandoned locations without the necessary essentials for a convincing horror film, or for somehow having the budget to make cheap gore effects, which happens to be a consistent attribute of these D-grade productions, and using irritating camera angles and motion setups that would make even the MTV-style directors of the realm a few years before shaking their heads in disgust. There have been some surprises in this field over the past 20 or so years, but Draven isn't capable of making that kind of thing. As for thematics, the film is based on a reality TV show, and a cheap one at that, made to exploit the fears of the contestants, and made purely for the chance to see the female contestants in tight clothing, which suddenly goes wrong as the cast and crew are slaughtered by the ghosts that live in the abandoned asylum. The film's ethical grounding is also suspect. For an ultra-cheap reality TV show, the host-producer violates TV show ethics by casting his girlfriend in the show, showing a clear lack of professional integrity. If nothing else, the film shows the stupidity of the producers of those cheap reality TV shows in the real world. Another thing that struck me about Hell Asylum was that the whole thing was repeated, and in my opinion done a heck of a lot better 5 years later with Death on Demand, which also copied Halloween Resurrection in some aspects, but managed to beat both its sources with a cleverly written storyline and engaging characters, as well as some modest atmosphere. Hell Asylum doesn't even have that going for it. The atmosphere is of the let's focus on the cheap gore variety, which makes the whole thing look pathetic in its execution. Now, don't expect any good acting from the cast in this one. The only exception is Scream Queen Brinker Stevens, who plays the lead of the Undead Boys, but even she doesn't show any spark in this one. That's how bad this one's written, and fails to show any skin. And even Joe Estevez, who has been making cheap dreck since the dawn of the 1990s, like I said, if you see Joe Estevez in a movie, it's a very bad sign. Seems bewildered here, playing his role the investor of some mild glass munching to give his role any life. The film would have been amusing if it weren't for the ultra-cheap gore effects, which at least look halfway competent if they were filmed right. Another common tactic of horror filmmakers of the 2000s is using atrocious heavy metal music on the soundtrack, and this one has it in spades. Not the worst thing I've ever seen, but not anywhere near the level of quality to rise anywhere above the D 2 out of 10 rating I'm giving this one. So it's basically a robustly bad film. Now for gore nudity. The film is pretty well stacked with gore effects, but these fall short of competent standards that look cheaply made. I mean, I can stand gore in the movie. I mean, I love gore, but the ones here, crap. Their use, coupled with the bad staging of the kills, makes the whole film look utterly unconvincing. As for nudity, there is none. The host simply lures his girlfriend away from the other contestants so they can get on with it. But the act is mostly implied by what is shown that the production crew are watching them do it from the cameras planted nearby. Another woman strips down to her underwear to get rid of the bugs tossed on her, and spends the rest of her very short life walking around in black-brown panties. Now for the DVD. This was released both in single form and as part of a collection of horror-themed films in the Horror 10-pack by Flashback Entertainment. There might have been other releases of this title, but I haven't seen any others. The picture quality is just short of terrible. The production was shot on cheap video stock of heavy grain and poor shadow detail, as well as a significant degree of washed-out color palette and poor resolution. The soundtrack is terribly shrill. You won't have it too easy trying to understand the poorly recorded dialogue, and there are no subtitles either. There is no supplement on the Flashback issue releases of this title, so Hell Asylum gets a D, 2 out of 10. It's bad. Now, I'm planning to do a number of other horror films in the future. Also, I'm going to revisit the Monogram 9. I'm going to do each one individually. Now, if you have any questions about DVDs or films, just hit me up in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer. I don't do requests. Okay, I hope you guys are staying safe. Enjoy yourselves and take it easy. And that's it. See ya.